the Washington County Republican and Democratic Party's nominating convention. A filmmaker speaks on Southern Utah's links to the new Netflix documentary on the troubled teen industry, and Trailblazer Nation Springfest is upon us.
You're watching St. George News at 5.
Good afternoon, I'm Amy Bennett. The Washington County Republican Party's nominating convention took place at a local high school on Saturday. St. George News reporter Maury Kessler has more on the meeting and some of the highlights from the event.
The Washington County Republican Party held its nominating convention at Hurricane High School on Saturday, with highlights that included a vote on a local Senate race that resulted in a primary, and the party chair asking for civility among party members. Incumbent State Senator Don Ibsen is going to primary for Senate District 29 against challenger Chad Benyon. Benyon took the majority of the delegate vote over 2 rounds of voting, with the final vote seeing him take 58% to Ibsen's 42%. The threshold a candidate needs to pass convention without a primary is 70%. Ibsen spoke to St. George News after the convention and said he expected this could happen due to the high threshold and is looking forward to the primary election. Benyon, who has previously served 3 terms in the Utah House, said that the results were not surprising and is happy with the outcome.
You know, with him being such a longtime incumbent, I think this was probably pretty likely. We anticipated it. It was a great day, though, to come out on top, and also by such a large margin.
Washington County Republican Chair Lisa Sandberg said she felt invitations to join the party and caucus with like-minded conservatives is being derailed by the behavior of some of the party members.
People were rude. I mean, it wasn't just heated. I mean, people said things that were derogatory and rude, and it made her feel like she didn't belong there. We need our Christian life to reflect our political life. We need to be, people don't want to be around us if we're angry and if we're not promoting our message in a positive way.
Several candidates and incumbents running for state and federal offices also attended the convention in order to appeal to delegates who will be attending the state party's upcoming convention in April.
Thanks, Maury. While the Republican Party was running their convention, the Washington County Democrats held their own meeting Saturday night. Eric George Gould brings us the highlights and the insights from the Democratic delegates gathering.
Washington County Democrats elected delegates for the state convention and spoke to their issues Saturday during the Washington County Democratic Convention. Speeches about growth, water, women's rights, attainable housing, and young people reflected issues Democrats will be highlighting in upcoming elections. Brian King, Democratic candidate for governor, told attendees what he says when people ask him why he's running for governor in the very Republican state of Utah.
Well, I've had people say to me, Brian, why are you doing this, dude? you can't win this race. Democrats can't win a statewide race. Well, I'm not buying it. I wouldn't do this if I didn't think I could win.
Chuck Good, candidate for the Washington Commission, spoke about water use, and Senate District 29 candidate Deidre Richhart spoke about her platform as well.
Thanks, Eric. The preservation of Bryce Canyon National Park remains a top priority for park officials, especially as visitation rates continue to rise. Stephanie DeGraw shares insights on their strategies to enhance visitors' experiences while also protecting the park's natural beauty.
Bryce Canyon National Park is gathering visitation data to better manage visitors and preserve the environment. The park is also collaborating with local communities and government agencies. Kelly Wood, an outdoor recreational planner for the park, had this to say.
And that's a balance that can be hard to find as more and more people come to visit. So my role as the visitor use management park planner is really trying to understand our current visitors, but also think to the future about ways that we can plan for the management, design projects that will continue to support high quality visitor experiences, hopefully for a long, long time.
The park uses social media, news releases, and its website to inform visitors about updates.
Thanks, Stephanie. If you have a subscription to Netflix, you may have stumbled across a documentary about the controversy surrounding some youth treatment programs. Chris Reed with St. George News spoke with Catherine Kubler, who is not only the director of the show, but also a subject.
Today it's known as the Shangri-La Event Center. But until recently, the large swath of land in Tokerville was Robert Litchfield's estate. Litchfield and a franchise of stay-in adolescent centers that operated from a base in southern Utah is the subject of one of the most popular programs on Netflix in the last 2 weeks. The program, Cons, Cults, and Kidnapping.
I got here at 3 in the morning and they said I was not allowed to talk anymore and you can never leave.
The filmmaker and lead subject of the 3-part documentary, Catherine Kubler, spoke to St. George News, recounting being sent by her parents when she was 17 for having some sips of Mike's Hard Lemonade to a residential teen center in upstate New York and held there for 15 months. Kubler said the documentary and evidence gathered from the East Coast to centers in St. George, Hurricane, and Laverton show common elements of punitive abuse, torture, stress, humiliation, and isolation.
I didn't try to separate myself from it because it very much was my story and all the people that came along with me were my friends. But and it was very personal, and for people to understand this industry, they need to understand how it affects people holistically, and not just from this outside perspective, which is how this issue has been addressed in the past.
Those involved in the past and currently at the centers locally have denied wrongdoing. And at least one currently operating facility in St. George featured in the documentary calls it one-sided and say they have been unfairly deemed guilty by association for being on the same site as a previously closed center. While there have been raids, arrests, and closures, there have been few convictions and most lawsuits have been settled out of court. Late in April, the city of Hurricane said it's going ahead with a naming of a new gymnasium complex under construction after Robert Litchfield, despite an online petition drive against it. Kubler said the goal of the documentary was to prove that what she went through really happened, but she says she wonders whether people in southern Utah will care.
Why is that not happening in St. George and Hurricane and Laverton, where Cross Creek Manor held the start of it? I mean, are people not ashamed of this? Are they okay with this?
Thanks, Chris. Utah Tech University will be hosting the Trailblazer Nation Springfest and is inviting the entire community to come celebrate. The event will include free children's egg hunts, a golden egg hunt challenge for people 16 or older, carnival games, food trucks, live music, and more. The Trailblazer Nation Springfest starts this Thursday, March 28th at 5:30 in the middle of Utah Tech's campus in Encampment Mall. And now I'm going to send it over to Candace Seacrest to tell us about what happened this past weekend in sports.
Thanks, Amy. The second week of Region 9 baseball went down, and although Snow Canyon and Pineview have played the fewest amount of games, they're the only teams without a region loss. The Warriors, who were coming off a first week bye, played Hurricane, shutting them out in both games, with the first one ending 24-0 and the second one ending 15-0. Dixie played Cedar this week, and the final scores weren't much closer as the Flyers beat the Reds 12-1 in the first game and 15-0 in the second. Flyers pitcher Braxton Yates put together a great start on the mound in the first game, throwing 4 innings, allowing just 1 run on 2 hits and punching out 8. And the most interesting series from last week was Crimson Cliffs versus Desert Hills. Each team proved they could win on the road as the Mustangs won game 1 15-9 and the Thunder won the second game 13-5. And in Region 9 girls golf, Crimson Cliffs won their second straight match, led by Kate Walker, who shot 5 under par and ended with a score of 66. Now back to you, Amy.
Thank you for watching St. George News at 5. I'm Amy Bennett with St. George News, your #1 source for local news.
This has been St. George News at 5.